It flew off down the pavement, bounced onto its side, and just as I walked out of the shop, it took me out at 20 miles an hour by the legs and I face planted the curb. I started to just not go outside, and I would be fine in my own space, and then I'd try to leave the house and I would be overcome with I'd physically sweat. I'd be dripping across my whole body, my arms, my hands, my legs, everything would be covered in sweat. I'd be getting palpitations. I'd think I was gonna wet myself or be sick or something. I wasn't feeling sad or depressed or whatever in my head. What I found wild was it was a physical reaction, and I just had no idea where it was coming from. I just want someone to fix me. I just need someone to fix me. I think that was the point where I realized I had to fix me. I was having a panic attack outside beforehand. It was back when everyone wanted you to be as skinny as you could be skinny. And I look at pictures now and I'm a bag of bones, and I still thought I was fat, and people told me that my hips were too big or whatever, and I was half the size I am now. It's actually quite sad to look back because I was starving myself. I was allowing myself a bowl of broccoli in the evening and then training as hard as I could through the day, and I was still never good enough. I hit a point where I was so low I wanted to die. So it doesn't matter what I do now, nothing can be as bad as that. I remember standing in Sloane Square, and suddenly every noise, every bit of air that brushed my face, all my senses were just going crazy, and I just curled into a ball on the floor. When you're feeling so crap and you're going through such a traumatic thing, you just want to know that it's going to be okay, and that people have got your back, and that they're there for you, and that you'll come out the other side, so that there's that hope to go forward and work towards for that person. I was scared to tell anyone that anything had ever been wrong with me. And now actually I'm no, I think it's a really powerful time to be sharing these kind of stories.
It's my belief that too many societal problems persist because we keep relying on the same ways of thinking. Question the Default exists to challenge the norms that shape our society, dismantling the status quo and exploring better alternatives for how we live and manage our health and well-being. Question the Default is for those who are driven to create a better future. If this mission resonates with you, please consider subscribing, liking, or sharing. Every single small action helps us on our mission. Thank you. Most of us look completely fine on the outside, while our body is keeping the score on the inside. Quietly sounding the alarm, perhaps for a racing heart, a breath that won't settle, a life that shrinks to the safe places. Today's guest knows that feeling. Danni Menzies is the Scottish presenter many of you know from Channel 4's A Place in the Sun. I, for one, watched that as a child and growing up. Off screen, she's rebuilt more than once, from panic attacks to agoraphobia at university, to a moped accident completely out of the blue that left her concussed and forced a pause in her life that was at the worst time she could imagine. We get into what anxiety feels like in the body, the tools that helped, EMDR, movement, cold water, community, and how suspected ADHD and dyslexia shaped her focus. We also talk about agency, saying no to beauty rules, designing a new chapter in her life between London and Los Angeles. If you've ever felt stuck, sidelined, or back at zero, this one's certainly for you. Thank you so much, Dani, for everything you have shared with us today. Dani, welcome to the show. Thank you for being on.
Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Amazing. Well, yeah, I've been looking forward to having you on for since we started the idea of the podcast, actually. So just a massive thank you. And yeah, can't wait to get into some of this. So on our briefing call the other day, I was kind of taken back. I thought you were kind of in America or Australia, like this picturesque background. And yeah, rural Scotland, where you grew up. Can you take us back to life in Kenmore? Is that right?
Yeah, Kenmore.
And what was that like for you? And how did you get to the point that you are now in your career, I guess?
Growing up in Kenmore was obviously, you saw it on the screen, it's such a beautiful place to grow up. You're surrounded by nature, the lochs, the hills. So I had a really beautiful childhood there. It was a bit wild. My parents were working all the time, so I was kind of left to roam free and, run up hills and play with horses. And you don't really realize how lucky you are until you fast forward, 30 years and you're in London. You're like, wait a minute, that was actually really pretty good. But yeah, growing up there was gorgeous. And I guess the journey from there to here was a bit, I mean, it wasn't really exactly straightforward. I went to uni to study at Loughborough, and I was there for a couple of years. And I kind of wanted to get as far away from home as possible, but without going too far, that I felt safe enough.
So you went for the middle of the UK.
Yeah. So I
Bang
went
in
for
the
the
middle.
Midlands. So I was there for a few years, and then I had two sort of not great things happen at the same time. I had an accident, which was quite traumatic, and I also lost a childhood sweetheart, passed away. And I think those two things for me kind of triggered something inside me. So I ended up dropping out of uni because I was struggling so much with panic attacks, anxiety, that I went back to Scotland. And then I'd always worked with animals and had animals and loved animals. So my granny helped me get this first rescue horse, and that sort of got me out of the house every day, because that was something I was struggling with, was going outside. And I ended up building a riding business over a few years and doing that, which was amazing, actually, looking back. And one day a photographer came up to take his kid for a ride with us, asked me if I would do a shoot. And I'd sort of gone from being like quite a big girl surviving on pizza and vodka at uni to working my ass off literally at the horses over a year. So I hadn't really even realized that I was slim enough to be a model. But then that happened, got picked up for modeling, moved to Edinburgh, was still sort of struggling with anxiety, panic attacks a bit. So I kind of wanted to push myself, and this opportunity came up to model in Mexico. So I was like, do you know what? I really want to go to London, but I'm really scared and keep having all this sort of stress, anxiety, panic. If I just put myself in the most terrifying situation I can find, then London will be a piece of in comparison. So I did that. Mexico was absolutely wild. Had no idea how scary Mexico was, especially back then. I was getting chased, followed, people broke into our apartment. It was wild. So I ended up coming back early, but it did what I needed it to do, and it gave me that like confidence to be like, London's not going to be as difficult as that. So then I moved to London and carried on modeling for a bit and then moved into telly.
Incredible. There's so much in there. It shows us if you're hosting a podcast, you can do as much research as you want, but actually it's all in like these kind of unknown things, right? I didn't know about the entrepreneurial side. Can you take us back to that moment then? So you dropped out of university, and you said that there was this kind of like traumatic moment that happened and made you fall like what happened?
It's so weird because I really didn't understand it for a long time. So I was actually sober, but I'd gone to this club with a friend, and I was on a blue WKD Bucking Bronco bottle, if that makes sense. I can picture it. And basically it wasn't up to health and safety standards. So it should have been a certain distance from anything, and it wasn't. And because I knew everybody there and I was a horse rider, they put it on full throttle like that and like that. And I basically got propelled face first against a metal stage. And so I had a cut across my nose, my eyes were swollen. It was pretty bad. I actually remember, I remember sitting in the waiting room thinking I'm gonna die. Like my head felt like it was going to explode. It was such a scary, scary thing. And I spent the night in hospital, and then I sort of, I thought you start to get better, you think you're okay, and then Murchie died, who was someone I sort of fell in love with when I was probably 10 years old, and we'd always sort of been on and off throughout our lives. And I guess a bit of me thought I'd always end up being with him, to be honest. And so when he passed away, those two incidents sort of had happened in quite a short period of time. And I started to just not go outside, and I would be fine in my own space. And then I'd try to leave the house and I would be overcome with I'd physically sweat. Like I'd be dripping across my whole body. My arms, my hands, my legs, everything would be covered in sweat. I'd be getting palpitations. I'd think I was going to wet myself or be sick or something, and I would get so far and this would come over me, and then I just have to go back into the house and lie on a cold floor until I'd calmed down, and then I just stopped going out basically. So that kind of went on for like maybe a month. I think my mum and dad came to visit and they were like, look, you're not going to any of your classes, you need to just come home with us. And I was like, no, I'm not coming home with you. I'll be fine. I'm fine. And then I thought, maybe I've got a virus. Maybe that's what's wrong with me. And I remember driving to the doctor's surgery and on the way there passing out at the traffic lights because I was having such a panic attack. But I didn't know what a panic attack was. I didn't know what was going on. I just thought I was sick. And so that was kind of scary. That really scared me, actually. And I think probably, if I remember correctly, a few days later, I didn't tell anyone. I was like a really social person at uni, or I had been. And I didn't tell anyone. I just packed up my life and got in my car and I drove home and didn't go back. And I just, even on that journey home, I had a really terrible panic attack where I got stuck in traffic and I remember sweating. And it's so weird because you're just thinking, everybody's looking at me. You're in a car in traffic. No one cares. But I was overcome with this sort of just awful anxiety, panic. And I woke up on the floor of a petrol station toilet and like covered in sick and sweat. And I couldn't remember getting there. And then just got back in the car and drove back to Scotland, and that was it. I never went back to uni. It was mad.
It's so sad because it's that I'm kind of like picturing those kind of two awful moments, like on the other end of the spectrum as well. That's like what the pain and trauma is, like happening at that same time, and you trying to make sense of that. I'm imagining like you were 19, 20, 21 sort of age.
19, 20, yeah.
That age, a lot of people, if you are listening to this podcast, will probably be starting uni in their first kind of, semester at uni. And like there is so much pressure, regardless whether anything happens anyway, to like conform, being that environment, let alone if that happens to you. And I think it's quite interesting when you share about the physical signs.
Yeah.
And like you thought you might have a physical illness.
But that's the thing, because at the time, mentally, like obviously Merchie passing away, you have that moment where you feel like, the life is sucked out of your body and you just, you grieve. But I wasn't sitting thinking about it. I wasn't feeling sad or depressed or whatever in my head. I was just trying to get on with things. I'm very much a get on with it person. But it was what I found wild was like, it was a physical reaction and I just had no idea where it was coming from.
It's this idea of sitting on a cold floor. As part of like kind of my career, I have spoke to people about what their experiences of panic attacks have been and how they have helped manage that. And I started to make a list of like the things that people would do when they're in the midst of panic. And it's actually incredible the things that people do to find that moment of calm in such a heightened level of distress, because it feels like you're having a heart attack.
Yeah.
And so often it can be kind of mistaken as a heart attack. But cold, something sensory, tends to be quite a central point that I found in the conversations I've had. So that idea that you actually almost like were able to ground yourself.
I would people would come into our house and I'd literally be lying in like my pants and t-shirt on the floor, literally just trying to get cold. It's
and
weird.
Slowly, I guess you're breathing, that kind of anxiety and like chest and neck kind of just slowly eases and you're like, oh yeah. But it's incredibly, incredibly crippling, right? And, there's some amazing literature on this, like The Body Keeps the Score, which is an amazing book. Is it on the bookshelf? No, I didn't put it on there, but it should be on the bookshelf, all around how our body tells us if our mental health is in a place of difficulty and suffering. So coming out of that experience, that must have been such a scary moment. You've moved from Scotland down to the Midlands, an amazing university. You had so much choice at that point, and then to leave and go back, like when you got back home, what did you do? Like, how did you start your recovery? I guess
I got very depressed, first of all. I think I at Loughborough, I'd been I've always been a very social person. So I was, I had lots of friends. I was going out all the time. I was doing my classes. And I went from that to nothing. And like I deleted Facebook. I did not contact anybody that I knew from uni. I just cut myself off completely. And no one really knew what happened to me, I don't think. So the first thing was I spent a period of time, and it's weird because when I think back to it, I can't really tell you how long this period of time was for. It's all a bit of a blur.
Yeah.
But I was very, very depressed. I remember one day I just couldn't stop crying, and I know my dad didn't really understand it, and my mum was just, it's awful for parents to see their child going through that, but I was just so low. And I remember a real sort of turning point, or sort of rock bottom point, was when we were having dinner and I couldn't stop crying, and I went upstairs to my mum and dad's room, and I was just on the floor howling, and my mum came up and said, just please, like, stop. And I was like, I just can't. And like, I won't do anything. I'm not going to do anything that will hurt you. But if you could give me one gift, it would be for me to not be here tomorrow.
So sad.
I was at that point. And so that was when, it's actually really sad. I haven't really thought about that in a long time. But that was when mum and dad were like, okay, we need to do something here. And I went into the Priory for a little while, which was an experience in itself. It's kind of, you're in bed and somebody comes in every hour and sort of shines a light on you. You're medicated. I think I was on 30 milligrams of diazepam a day. So walking along the corridors, I was leaning against the wall because I was so, doped up. And I was there for a little while, and I think seeing all the other people in there, and there's obviously quite a range of different issues, whether it's eating disorders, alcoholism, whatever, it really sort of it puts things into perspective a little bit, I guess. But I guess that was a sort of turning point. I came out of the Priory, and it didn't fix me. I didn't feel better, and I was still medicated, but I did start looking for other ways. It was that point where I went, right, wait a minute, no one's going to fix me. In fact, that was the thing that I remembered saying a lot. I just want someone to fix me. I just need someone to fix me. And I think that was the point where I realized I had to fix me. And so my mum found this advert in the back of a magazine, which was for this guy who had written a book, and he dealt a lot with people with various different issues, and he happened to live in Perthshire in Scotland. So she was like, let's go and see this guy. And he was an NLP practitioner. And I think I did 2 sessions with him, but after the first session, so NLP, I know there's lots of different kinds of NLP. Yeah, and I'm sure there are various different kinds, but the thing that he did with me, he sort of made me imagine my life as like a ruler, and that's the timeline. And, you start at the very beginning from when you're like in the womb, and he gets you into this almost hypnotic kind of relaxed state and takes you right through your life, back to the start, and stops at any flag of emotion and goes down into it and talks you through it to kind of release the feelings. So things that I had found really hard to talk about, like Murchie dying, suddenly I could talk about. And it was the weirdest thing. And after this first session, I went home and I think I slept for like 2 days. It was literally like this thing had been lifted off my shoulders, and I was exhausted. But then that was kind of a turning point as well, where I still got a lot of the physical symptoms, but mentally I was trying to push myself through them, and I wanted to, and I saw hope.
This episode is brought to you in support of Calm, the campaign against living miserably. Calm is a leading UK suicide prevention charity on a mission to help people end their misery, not their lives. We both do things differently. We both know we need to change the conversation around suicide, and that's why together we're both creating space to question the defaults that shape the way we think, feel, and talk about suicide and mental health. We're opening up conversations that remind people, whatever you are facing, you're not alone. Calm has loads of tools and resources available to anyone online to help you find the support that you need, including a life-saving helpline for people open every day from 5 p.m. to midnight, as well as vital online resources for anyone who needs them. So if you or someone you know needs to talk, please visit thecalmzone.net. Thank you for being part of this. And of course, today we may touch on conversations about suicide in this episode. Together, we can question the defaults that keep people silent, smash the stigma around suicide, and help build a world where no one has to face it alone. Thank you. No, thank you for sharing that. That's not, I can see like you were clearly like emotional with saying, like reliving some of that. And again, I'm just imagining this like rural area, like we spoke about it before. Like I grew up in a very rural place, and I can, being quite isolated is kind of like quite eerie at times. Like it comes with like amazing joy, but it's also quite, I always find it's quite emotional to like think back at the worst times. I've always been in very, very rural locations. As I was thinking now, like as I kind of followed you online, like you're always in water. Like it's almost like you have like peace, like when you're in environments, right? Actually, from what I know of, a lot of your career has been, obviously, of course, like it's what many people know you are, of like traveling, but London, right? And it's the thing that London doesn't have. Like, how did you, being away from home now, how have you managed that kind of transition to being like always on the go, like being in the spotlight, but at the same time, like finding peace at home?
I think at home in Scotland, weirdly, I found it hard to go home for a while after that. Once I got away from it, because I spent a few years there struggling and trying to push through this thing. When I finally moved on and moved to Edinburgh and London, I actually found it hard to go home because I associated it with those dark feelings. And it took me a while to kind of move past that. But you're totally right about the water. I know a lot of people find sort of, calm and peace there, but I really, really, really do. I think growing up next to it just instantly soothes my soul. And actually, doing a place in the sun for so long, I would get up really early in the morning. I'd go down to the beach, meditate, or go for a run, or, I'd always be drawn to it. And it really helped me feel sort of calm and collected.
So the perfect job for you.
Yeah. It was for a while.
In that sense.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's more to it than that. But I mean, you know what I mean? From the outside looking in. But so how, your love of like nature and horses, tell me about the kind of what happened. You were working in the stables, or how did it pan out? Tell me.
So basically, my family have like a property business, but it used to be a farm. And so there's lots of unused fields on the land. So my grandmother helped me get this rescue horse, and it came from a dealer's yard in Ayrshire, who eventually ended up on Crime Watch. It was very juicy because he was basically bringing horses on boats over from Hungary and supposed to be sort of rehabilitating them and selling them on, but they were kept terribly. So I sort of ended up starting a riding business with our old fields, and got some locals to help me build the stables and my dad. And it was all done very cheap and cheerful. And they were all rescues, but it was like the most healing thing ever, because one, none of my family are horsey. I had to go out and look after them every day. It wasn't like I could be like, oh, I can't do it today.
Yeah,
like
horses days.
Yeah, it was something bigger than me. It needed me. So that really, really helped me. And it was therapy. I saved them, they saved me, and it was
so nice.
It was beautiful. And I loved doing that. And I worked really, really, really hard at it. And it went on for years. It's only recently sort of shut down. But that was a really big part of my healing journey, I think. And then that's where I got picked up by a photographer who basically did a shoot for me, and ended up getting me an agent in Edinburgh. And that's where the modelling started. And that was probably not the best industry to go into after everything that I'd been through, but I wanted to push myself out of my comfort zone and do something different. And I actually remember my first meeting with that agent, because I was having a panic attack outside beforehand, and I was not allowing myself to take anything to calm myself down medication wise. And my mum was like, just pretend you're someone else, just pretend. So I did that for years. I just pretended. I was like, if I just pretend I'm this confident person who, can do this and believes in themselves and whatever, eventually I'll start feeling it. And I did eventually start feeling it. It took a really long time, but a long time was an act.
There's so much in that imagine you're someone else, like kind of line, that actually acted as a coping mechanism for you.
Yeah.
To then start gaining the confidence in yourself.
Yeah.
Almost. But your mum's been an important part in your life, right? Like from my research, that she's always been there, right? She's been like a rock in your life when you've had these kind of difficult moments.
Yeah, my family are definitely have been, really supportive. I think more so over the last sort of 3, or I've felt it a lot more over the last 3 years when I had a more recent accident and sort of, struggled again a bit mentally after that, and my parents have been massively supportive. And I think as I've got older, we've just got closer and closer, which is really nice.
So nice.
Yeah.
So you said about maybe not the best industry to get into soon after kind of the industries you had. Like what obviously everyone has from an outsider's perspective. Not many people have the reality of what it's like to be
Yeah.
a model and then be in that sector. Like, can you tell us a bit more about
It is crazy. I mean, to struggle to go outside your front door, have panic attacks going to the shops, to then be like, I know, I'll put myself in front of a panel of people who are just going to judge me based on things I can't control. Like, I don't know why you do that to yourself. But anyway, it was good fun. I think moving into fashion back then, my first agent was more of like a fashion modeling agent, and I was going and doing, you know, like some catwalk shows. I did some underwear shows, but it was a weird one. It was back when everyone wanted you to be as skinny as you could be skinny, and I look at pictures now and I'm a bag of bones, and I still thought I was fat, and people told me that my hips were too big or whatever, and I was half the size I am now. Like, it's actually quite sad to look back, because I was starving myself, and it was, you know, I was allowing myself a bowl of broccoli in the evening and then training as hard as I could through the day, and I was still never good enough because it was just not where I was supposed to be. But it was, I can't say I loved it. It wasn't a lovely period of time, but it was me pushing myself, and that's what it was about, you know, going into the world and doing something that I didn't think I could do, because my mentality was very much, I've almost died. Like, that's where I hit a point where I was so low, I wanted to die. So I was kind of like, doesn't matter what I do now, it's not going to be nothing can be as bad as that. So I don't really care what happens or what people think or say. And I guess that's really why I got to the point where I pursued a career in telly, because I just thought, what's the worst that can happen? You're not good enough, or people say no, or whatever. Like, it's never going to be as bad as how you felt back then.
There's so much in that, this idea of like, you almost like had nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Would you actually tell yourself that as you're going in? Like, would you have this like positive, like self-talk in your head, like, just go for it? Because I'm trying to think back to those two major moments happening at university, trying to figure out what's next in your life. Like, on paper, that doesn't come across like you have a low level of resilience, right? At that point, like, you were at rock bottom, so then go into that and then actually come out of it in the personality that people know. Like, how did you do that? Big question. Like, how on earth can you do that?
I've always been a big personality. I just lost myself for a while, I think. And I honestly think I faked my way into it, like, confidence wise, you know, like it's a weird thing. I was talking to someone I'm doing a job with next week on the phone the other day, and I was saying to him, he was like, how are you feeling about it? And I was like, do you know what? It's my first time doing a job for ITV, right? And I'm really excited about it because I've been trying to move more and doing more car stuff, and I'm co-hosting the Silverstone Festival for ITV. So for me, that's really exciting, but it's the first time I've had a new big opportunity that I don't feel terrified about. This is the first time at 37. So it's like, it's taken that long.
So what's different this time though? Like, you've had a very long career, like, people know a lot about you. Like, why do you come into this new opportunity that's coming up with ease? What's different?
I think there's two things. One, after my more recent accident, I went back and did a lot of different therapies. I think it's called EMDR, although I'm dyslexic, so those letters might be jumbled up. But it's basically like rapid eye movement therapy. And doing that and the talking therapy, I've dived into everything. You kind of go back to the start again, because when you have a trauma, it brings up old trauma. So you kind of have to rehash everything. And so I think doing all that therapy made me go into things that I'd never really gone into before. And so I've come out of it feeling stronger and better than I ever have. And then I also think just age. Okay. Like, I've stopped giving so much of a, because it's like, you know, it's almost like there's this pressure on you when you're younger, and you feel it more. Whereas now it's like, well, I'm not the youngest pretty one anymore. I'm like, it's like, you like me because I can actually talk. Great.
Okay.
I don't know.
Confidence in your ability.
Yeah.
Like, call it what you like. But I mean, you said dyslexia then.
Yeah.
Is that something you've known about yourself for a long time?
Oh, do you know what? The more that we talk about, I've got an appointment to get an ADHD diagnosis, which I never even knew was a thing, but it explains so much about my life. And then dyslexic is something that I never got tested for, but it's very visible in the way that I put down phone numbers, read, write. And it's not severe, but I just know that I jumble letters and numbers up all the time, and I have to go back over everything. But it's not something that I've ever, it is what it is.
How do you feel about potentially gaining an ADHD diagnosis? I'm sure there's been a build up of like thinking.
Well, I just think, I've actually like had the conversation in my head about 20 times with the doctor, but that's a bit of an ADHD thing in itself, I think. But I'm like, the more I learn about it, because you do from social media and things that pop up, it was actually, the more I learn about it, the more I'm like, it makes so much sense. It was actually my last therapist that did a preliminary test, said I scored very high on it, and that it explained a lot of things from my childhood. We'd obviously been doing therapy for 1.5 years. She knows everything, and she was the one that's like 99% sure. This is what's going on, and this is why you struggled with dealing with the trauma. This is why you struggle with sleep. This is why, she sort of explained a lot of things.
There's so much in that, because I was diagnosed 2 years ago with ADHD. So the reason why I hold this in my hand, like it's not button as much, keeps me grounded. Something that's like having something in my hand all the time. I don't move quite as much.
I squeeze.
You squeeze, yeah. And it's quite really interesting, because you sounded almost like how you then can dissect between the trauma and the ADHD, and then where it intersects even. And, I lost my dad to suicide. I always put down my kind of drive, relentless, didn't need to sleep, didn't need to eat, just focused on making life better, down to the fact that I was bereaved by suicide. Therefore, I needed to make everybody's life better and no family go through what my family went through. The reality was, it was my ADHD driving all of that reaction. And it's so interesting when you go through that process, which you're going to go through, like when you look at the trauma, the ADHD symptoms, and where it has helped you and hindered you in your life. And there are so many people now realizing that they may have a diagnosis of ADHD, but actually have had incredible careers, incredible personal lives, whatever they kind of see as success or joy, but actually seeing where the workarounds have been in their life that they didn't even realize. And it's quite interesting that I didn't know that we were going to talk about ADHD on this podcast. I talked to you about water. I think the thing that actually saved me, and I honestly think saved my life, was being in water most mornings, and realized that actually calmed the ADHD symptoms before I went out and saw people. I would go into water at any point of stress, the most stressful, most scariest things in my life, and I would come out slightly different.
Interesting.
I
went through, because I was in Scotland for a while, and I was going in the loch every morning, and they're my best. Those weeks are when I feel best, for sure. Definitely. But the interesting thing you're saying about like the drive that you get and not eat it, this is what's so interesting. Like I go from like, don't need to eat for 3 days, sleep. I can get laser focus and go balls deep on anything. But then equally, I have a day where if I don't have to do anything, I can't get out the house, and I will binge eat, and I get really low. And it's like those two extremes, the good side of it. Well, I mean, it's not a bad thing for me, because I'm like, I feel skinny after 2 days because I've been so focused and I'm not eating much and I'm doing all of this. But then, the downside of it is it can be really, really down. And the lack of sleep is what I struggle with. And I just wish that, I think sometimes these words are used a bit too much. Anxiety, people assuming they've got ADHD when you're like, no, you're just excited or whatever, like I think people use it a bit loosely sometimes.
Yeah, they do, definitely.
When actually, if you do have it bad, it can be really quite a struggle. And I think like looking back on my childhood, I'm like, gosh, I wish we knew. Like I started asking for sleeping pills at school when I was 15, because I'd be up all night with my mind going crazy, my attention in class, getting in trouble for not being able to sit still in my seat. All these things that actually have an explanation.
Yeah, that's going to be amazing for you. It's almost like we need to do this again. Like 6 months down the line.
Yeah,
and like because that's an incredible process that you're going to go through. Like. And it's quite intense though. I'm sure you know this and like prepared, but like looking quite deep back into your life, and next to certain, you will need a family member to talk about your very, very early days as part of the diagnosis process. And what's really interesting is that I found out so much about my childhood and my really early life I guess I had no idea about, but actually now I can picture actually a lot of this was very visible at an early age. Certain things in my life made it kind of very, very obvious, but like you're going to go through like a deep process of learning, which is amazing. But I also hear you, like a lot of people, the language around it is being thrown around quite loosely. Like this is debilitating. Like yes, there are aspects for some people where ADHD symptoms can supercharge some aspects of their characteristics and behaviors. 100%, that is true. But it's not the full picture. And I think we need to do more to show the full picture of how this impacts people's lives. And of course, a lot of this is about impulse and it's about control and hyperactivity. So actually with those comes also some of the kind of vices in life as well. And we know that there's a connection with drugs, alcohol, gambling, and sadly suicide. So I can't wait for you to go through that process.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And I think, at times I've tried, now looking back, I can see that I've maybe tried to self-medicate in different ways to get myself to calm down, sleep, etc. It is really interesting, and I am looking forward to learning more about it. I think it will probably be more emotional than I expect right now.
Yeah, well, make sure you plan good activities that you love around it. Because I remember feeling drained, but amazing. I feel like that went on a natural, wild tangent. And actually, I also want to speak about the actual kind of the traumatic moment that happened with the accident, which sadly was the second accident of a similar nature, which I imagine a lot of people may know about you. You shared very publicly. I can remember seeing like how much that impacted your physical appearance. And I think that's similar-ish time to then, when I started following your mental health journey as well. But can you take us back to that time in your life?
I mean, it really wasn't that long ago, and it feels, it was absolutely bonkers. It was just one of those sliding door moments in life where, it really reminds you that things really can just change in a moment. So the accident was about 2.5, 3 years ago. And it was such a crazy time because I had just left A Place in the Sun. That was such a hard thing for me to do. I was on A Place in the Sun for 6 years. I ended up going back and doing the follow-up series for 1.5 years. But it was my first regular job in TV where I had a regular income. Things were good. But I just knew that I needed to make a change because it was never the end goal and I'd done my time there. So I just left A Place in the Sun. I was really scared to do so, but ended up having the most lucrative month I'd ever had in the month after. I was flying out to Morocco with Formula E. I'd been to Imola with F1. I'd done all these cool campaigns. I was killing it. I was like, this is awesome. Everything's going to be all right. And I was dating this guy, and we basically had been out for a few drinks, and we were walking home. And I think I'd only had one, to be fair. I was by no means drunk. And I went into a little shop, and as I walked out, a delivery driver had parked his bike about 20 meters up the road on the pavement, left his keys in it, popped into the shop, or next to the pavement, popped into the shop. And as I walked out the door, 2 drunk girls had tried to steal the moped, lost control of it, and it flew off down the pavement, bounced onto its side. And just as I walked out of the shop, it took me out at 20 miles an hour by the legs, and I face planted the curb. So I didn't see it coming. I last thing I remember is walking towards the shop door, and then I woke up on the pavement, and I just remember the impact was on this bit of my face. So I had a huge cut here. My nose was hit quite fractured. My lip was hanging off a bit, but I just it was just so painful and there was so much blood in my right eye that I just remember going, my eye. I thought I'd lost my eye. And then I was going, are my teeth still there? Because it hurts so much. And then I just started passing out again. And I just remember people trying to keep me awake on the pavement and loads of commotion going on around me. The bike hit 2 other people after me and then a lamppost before it stopped. It was pretty awful, to be honest with you. The police arrived probably just a moment or 2 later. They happened to be really close by. They'd called for an ambulance after about 5 minutes because I was losing consciousness. They were concerned that I might have bleeding on the brain. So the police, I remember them calling the office, whatever, and getting authorization to just put me in the back of the police car and blue light me to the hospital. So I remember lying in the back of the car, in and out of it, someone trying to keep me awake and them going really fast to the hospital. And I was in there for the night, had my face stitched up, did brain scans. And the scariest part of that whole thing, I think, was they had me in a neck brace on a bed, and it was like, I've never had anything like this before, ever. And I don't know if it's just concussion or what, but it was like I was lying there and it was like the room was falling away from me. It was like I'd open my eyes and then it would be like boom, and it was like being on a roller coaster, but I was just lying there and I was just going whoa. I was holding onto the bed going because I just thought I was falling. It was the most weird feeling and it was terrifying. And I remember the police coming in and they'd taken my phone and they'd called my parents and I could hear them saying, she's fine. And I was just lying there thinking, I'm not fine. Like, why are you telling my parents I'm fine? I'm not okay. They need to come here now. I'm like, this is really bad. And so my parents were in Spain and they didn't get a flight because they'd been told that I was fine. It was the most bizarre thing. Anyway, so I went home the next day. Obviously, there's no bleeding on the brain, but I did have really bad concussion. So I felt very sick. I was very dizzy, really unstable on my feet, in total shock, like total shock. The guy that I was dating, I remember he sat up all night watching me, or all day the next day watching me, and then left. And it must have been a few days, I don't know. And then when he left, he sent me a message breaking up with me the next day while I was still totally out of it, which was not very nice. And I basically didn't leave my house for a few weeks. I was on the sofa most of the time. I was, every time I stood up or sat down, I was getting this falling feeling. Every time I lay flat, that was when it was worst for some reason. When I was lying flat, it would feel like I was falling through the bed. So that was fun. It was kind of crazy. I think after about 2 weeks, I had cabin fever and I was like, right, I'm going outside. And I walked, I had big sunglasses on, my big scar on my face, my lip hanging off, and I walked up to the King's Road. And I remember standing in Sloane Square, and suddenly, like, every noise, every bit of air that brushed my face, like all my senses were just going crazy. And I literally curled into a ball on the floor and was crying and I couldn't move. And my friend who was supposed to meet me came and picked me up off the floor and put me in a taxi, and I just started howling and crying. And my mum happened to call me at that point in time, and she was like, they just hadn't, and I hadn't been able to communicate with them how bad I was, because I was in this like state of shock and like autopilot where I was just going, I'm fine, trying to do things, and I just really wasn't fine, but I didn't realize it at the time. So when that happened, mum got on a flight and came and stayed with me, and she stayed for a week or two, I think. But yeah, that was my first accident when I was 19, 20 at uni. Was like, you know, round one. And then they kicked up a level for round two, and this was much worse, and it really was terrifying. Like, I didn't think I would work again. My face looked so bad. I didn't think anyone would ever love me. You know, you have all these things going through your head that you just, yeah, tough.
Thank you for kind of reliving that. I can see it's not the easiest thing to do. And I kind of picture that happening in Sloane Square. Like, that is London. Everyone thinks, you know, high life London, Sloane Square, like, it's a really nice place to be, all the nice shops, all the nice restaurants. And for someone on the outside that had, like you described, how much was going for you at that period of time in your career, where you were traveling, what you were doing with your kind of all the projects you had on the go, to have that happen then, and then the amount of things that then followed after takes so much to come back from. I don't know how you did get through that. Like, what were the things when you look back, like you talked about how you talked about your friend like literally picking you up at your lowest, when someone was able to drop you at your lowest is really tough. So what were the things that gave you kind of slowly but surely like a tiny bit of hope that actually people are going to love you, you're still going to have an amazing career, you still got amazing friends?
Yeah, I mean, my friends were really amazing. My friends rallied. I've got a really beautiful group of friends, and they would all sort of pop by and see me. And I remember one of them, the first time she came round, she sort of opened the door and went, "Oh my God!" She's like, she didn't realize how bad it was. And I was like, "Thanks."
I'm assuming that's in her character.
Yeah,
like that, right?
It was like, "All right, thanks, Holly. I thought I was bad, but fucking hell." But yeah, no, they were amazing. I had lots of different friends pop by. They'd come around and make me dinner, and that really helped. But I definitely, like, my concussion lasted for nearly a month.
Okay.
I didn't even know that was possible.
So you had to cancel all work, I'm assuming, right, in that period after everything was done?
Everything was stopped. Life stopped. And then family supported more and more. And then I actually started speaking to this therapist, not through the insurers or anything like that, through myself. A friend of mine recommended this therapist called Edwina, who really reminded me of like my mum. She's like a little Scottish lady. She's lovely. And she was my rock throughout. Like I think some weeks I was speaking to her 3 times a week. I remember messaging my agent and them not replying. And so like I was worried about work and all of these kind of things. And there wasn't really much I could do other than just sort of go day to day. I renovated my flat. I'm not good at sitting still, Harry. I literally,
I'm struggling to keep up. In a good sense.
Sorry.
I'm joking.
About a month after the accident, you know, when my face started to, the concussion had died down, the face started to heal. I'd got through that sort of initial hard bit. I was like, right. So then I started looking at what I could do. And that was like, good time to do the garden, do the kitchen, you know, things that don't require a lot from me, but I can, you know, pick bits out.
You can see the end goal of doing those.
Yeah. And it's rewarding and all of that. So, and then I got back into exercise as well as soon as I could. I mean, I've always exercised my whole life, but especially for my mental health, because I do find that exercise is free therapy. So I really threw myself into that as well. I was training sort of 2 or 3 times a week unless I was getting headaches. Sometimes I get quite bad headaches for the first few months afterwards. But yeah, so I found things to keep me going, because if you just sit still and go into it, you might never come out. And I think that's what I was scared of. And that's what I kind of recognized, because I'd been so close before to hitting a low where I nearly didn't come out the other side, that I knew I had to take actions, the things, you know, control your controllables. What can you do? What can I do every day that's going to give me purpose, make me feel like I'm achieving something, whether it's a walk or, you know, lifting some weights or tidying the house, organizing a cupboard, anything. So that was me for quite a long time, just finding things like that to do.
And it's sad that you've had to have, if you took it 2 parts of your career, where you've had the modeling, where you had to conform in terms of eating and how that you had to be a certain way to get what you felt other people were needing from you. And then in the second part, when you're literally living the life with amazing projects going on, you have like people not replying to you, like agents not replying to you. I'm thinking there, I'm thinking about our world around my mental health, thinking actually you're therefore even more relatable. You have an amazing story. People can actually listen to you and think, you know what, I've had a traumatic moment and actually can live a purposeful life and have joy back in my life. It almost, for me, makes me think, why would people not want you more in front of the world?
Yeah.
That's how I see it. Maybe I'm kind of naive to it, but at the same time,
well, we're getting there.
Like you are, it makes you even more real, more relatable, because we know that suicide is something that impacts everybody. We are seeing rises in young women. Like I would imagine a lot of young women follow you and look at what you do and follow your life. Actually, this is what gives people those glimmers of hope, like hearing the reality behind what appears to be like somebody who has so much. And it has not been easy at all. And how did you...
To be honest, that's why I am so open about talking, because I mean, I don't like sitting and going, oh, poor me. You know, that's not who I am. Clearly, I just like to sort of find a way and get on with it or whatever. But at the same time, like, I do think what you're doing is so important. Having these conversations is so important because it does help other people, and that is why I will always be very open about my struggles, if there are any, because, or talking about the past, because, you know, it can go a very different way. And like, people have said that, they're like, how did you come back from that? And I was, and the first time someone said it to me, I was like, oh God, I didn't realize that there was another option. But yeah, there really was. And it could have ended my career.
Yeah.
And it should have, probably, you know, and I didn't work for a while, and I think my agent at the time had given up on me. And, you know, the only person that didn't give up on me was me for a while, you know. And you do just have to kind of find a way. But that's why I will always share, because there is always hope, and there is always a way. And
thank you for doing that, because it's when people didn't believe in you, when actually you had zero control in what happened. It's not like you went and did, you know,
no, it wasn't my fault,
a crime, right? You couldn't do anything about that. Unless you had, you know, what else could you do? And it's
But then you see someone like Davina, who has a brain tumor, and what their agents did around that, and it really was a great, you know.
That's where I'm going in my head,
Yeah, so that, you know, that was kind of, and when I look at it now, I'm like, actually, that's what I should have had more support and more of a plan around that, had I been with the right
literally
people.
What I wrote down now, like, what would you have changed in that moment? Not for you, but for, like, hopefully no one experiences exactly what you've experienced, but people will be of probably a similar kind of age, in a similar part of their career, and something bad is going to happen where they had zero control, and the people around them have choice in what they do. Like, what would you want people to think of now, given that you've been through two incredibly traumatic moments at different times of your life? Like, what could support have looked like that would have been very different and actually helped you during those moments?
A plan.
Okay.
Some sort of something to know that there's someone's doing something, someone cares. You know,
a mental health professional, or just
not even I was across the mental health stuff myself. Because I had experience. But yes, had they not had experience with that themselves before, some mental health support, of course. I'd already started that myself. I was on that. But for me, like, knowing that it's going to be okay, knowing that there's some sort of plan, knowing that, you know, making something good out of something bad is, you know, even if someone had said, right, let's see if we can do an article around, I don't know, trauma, whatever. Like, just some sort of encouragement, you know, that it was going to be okay, and we've got a plan, and when you're ready to come back to work, this is what we're going to do. Just don't ignore them.
And that's what happened, people.
I've felt, quite a few times, So
there were projects that clearly you physically had to miss, because I assume they were timely in their nature in the months after, but were there things that actually you didn't get as a result of what happened, which you should have got?
Well, that's the thing, I'll never know.
Right.
Like the thing is, for example, if you have I had a traumatic brain injury, right?
Yeah.
You have a traumatic brain injury, you're not going to be considered for dancing on ice or SAS celebrity. Do you know what I mean?
Because of the risk factor of you being on?
Because I've had a head injury, and you, like, there'll be a certain period of time before they would, you know, you have to come out the other side. And also because I was struggling with my mental health, like, you know, I remember when I first started doing TV and modeling when I was younger, and I remember getting contracts. This is like years and years ago, but I remember signing contracts, and one of the questions being, have you suffered with your mental health in the last 3 years? And I used to lie about it. So I had it really sort of ingrained into me to not be truthful about where I was at in my headspace. And then things have changed. So now we can be really honest about that. So I was being quite, you know, honest about where I was at, but just not getting maybe the right kind of support around it from the people that I thought I would.
It's quite worrying, isn't it? Because, you know, it's almost like, you know, we're doing this to promote honesty and vulnerability, allow more people to speak up, but actually there are moments where actually that is going to hinder you in your career. That's kind of the reality. Yeah.
And I like, now, because I am so far out I feel so far out the other side, and things are going good. I've got some good stuff going on.
Which we're going to talk about.
But that gives me the confidence to be like, okay, now I can tell you about the crap bit, because had I done that a year ago, I would be scared that I wouldn't get the work because of it.
Yeah. I think it's incredible what you're sharing, partly in the fact that I hope that people listening will take what you've said and implement it into how they might support somebody like you going through a traumatic moment who's in the public eye. Like, what's the kind of one rule that you'd hope that they would remember next time if that happens to somebody else?
I think it would just be to communicate and be there, and just, you know, like, it's when you're going through when you're feeling so crap and you're going through such a traumatic thing, you just want to know that it's going to be okay, and that people have got your back, and that they're there for you, and that you'll come out the other side, and that there is a plan or something like that, so that there's that hope to go forward and work towards for that person. What I spent that, I'd say, a year and a half wanting to get back to work and like stressing about it. I couldn't. That's the hard thing when you're self-employed. You've got a mortgage and you're single. Like, you can't really sit and go, okay, cool, I'm just going to chill for a year and a half till I'm better. No, that's like piling on top of the trauma. You've got the stress of not making money, the stress of worrying about whether it's going to start again. Do you need to find a new job? All that sort of thing. So I think the support is the most important thing, and the communication, just to know that, you know, it's going to be all right, and there's some sort of plan of action for the comeback. Yeah,
powerful. And so how about dating? Like, that's something that you have been open about.
Do you want to set me up with anyone? Do you want to help me on this front? Because
yeah, I'll keep it at the back of my mind. But I mean, in terms of, like, you speak openly, right, about the realities of dating. We even spoke about it just a moment ago. That person who kind of didn't support you at your lowest point, and then you found yourself without a partner, like, after that traumatic moment. It must have been a tough act to start dating again after that.
It took me a long time to start dating again. I mean, I didn't feel mentally, I wanted to, because I was sort of looking for someone to fill the void that I was feeling. But looking back, I'm like, God, I couldn't have dated anyone then. Like, I was a mess. But yeah, I mean, it took me a long time. I've not dated a huge amount of people since then, to be honest with you. And it was hard. And I guess I probably do have a little bit of abandonment issues, probably a little bit after that. But yeah, dating's a tough gig. I honestly, because of what happened, I kind of feel like I lost a couple of years of dating and work and whatever. And that's kind of why I decided to freeze my eggs, because, you know, I'm 37 years old. I would like to have a small family at some point. I've checked my body clock. I know I'll probably be all right doing it into my 40s, but just as a backup plan, I wanted to freeze my eggs so that that pressure is off. Because even if I did meet the right person tomorrow, work-wise, I'm only just getting going, and just sort of getting into the spaces where I want to be. So I wouldn't want to stop that too quickly. You
think it would hinder your, like, what you want to do too much?
Yeah. I mean, you can't ride a mini motorbike across Mongolia with a child.
And that's your plan, I'm guessing?
Hopefully that's a show that's going to be shot quite soon, a little doc series with an American company.
Exciting. Keep an eye on that. And I guess you must have had a lot of women, like, sharing their experiences as a result of what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
Like, and how's that been for you? I imagine a lot of people, it's a difficult thing for people to talk about. And I haven't seen a huge amount of conversation online until I started kind of really reading about what you're actually doing. And it's admirable. And like, how have you found talking openly about that?
It's a weird one, because you get a lot of older men judging you and giving you negative comments about it. That was what I found wild.
Why? I don't understand.
Well, they clearly don't either. That's the problem. But they would, why are you doing that? Just have a baby. What, just judgy sort of comments, which wasn't nice. But I had loads of amazing messages from women and some men as well, where they've struggled with IVF, and so they're saying what you're doing is amazing, and it's great that you're encouraging other people to do it. And actually, even in like the waiting room when you're going in for your appointments, there were women who were just slightly older than me that were going through IVF and struggling with it, and they were sort of sitting there saying to me, "I wish someone had told me to freeze my eggs. Like, you're doing the right thing." It's obviously still quite a new thing, and I think maybe some of the older generation aren't that supportive of it. But the reality is that the world has changed so much, and like everything's changed, but especially like women and their careers, and you know how they want to take control of things. Whether it's I know girls who are having babies on their own through donors. I know people who are doing it in lots of different ways, and I think for me, like the egg freezing, I actually think if you've got the means, everybody should do it. Like it's obviously an expensive process, and I hope that there's a day where it's more accessible for everybody. But I do think that if you've got the means, you should do it, because especially if you're a career person and you're in the city, because time flies, and you know, your body can change quite quickly, and it's a nice little safety net.
Yeah, I do find it fascinating. Do you think it will become more more accepted?
Yeah, I do. And I think it's actually amazing already. Like I've got friends whose companies will pay for them to do it.
And how does that impact the dating, which was the first question? Like, do you have to, because obviously you're very open about that online, and also what you're going now to do in part of your career, which we'll talk about in a moment. Like, are you dating?
Oh God, I had the worst date the other day. I'm trying. Do you know what? I go through phases. I'll go on the apps and I'll be like, right, it's a numbers game. Let's be positive. Let's find some dates. I'll chat to a few people, or I'll meet one. I'll be so disappointed that I'll be like this. And then I just won't bother again for a while. And there's also a bit of me that's kind of old school. And I'm like, I'm an energy person. I either vibe with you and we get on and we have fun and I fancy you because of your energy, or I don't. And I just find apps are so gross. Like, you're judging someone based on their height and their hairline and whatever. And it's just like, none of that really matters. But that's what you swipe. But what else are you going to, you're not swiping based on personality. That's what you swipe based upon. So it's just like, I'm going to delete them again. For the 750th time. But I do believe that I am someone who will just meet the right person in life at the right time.
At the time when you're probably not looking for it.
Yeah.
It is interesting.
But I do try. You know, I put myself out there a bit. It's not like I'm shut away all the time. I'm quite a social person and whatever. But yeah, it's just not happened so far.
I wonder if you'll meet the person you end up staying with in the next phase of life, as in what you're going to now share that you're up to in the coming months and years.
I think so, to be honest with you. It's funny. Tell us. So I finished doing therapy after the accident at the end of last year. But I still wasn't feeling happy in myself at where I was at. I was feeling frustrated with work and just finding myself getting really bummed out because I felt left behind from my friends who were getting married and having babies and moving in. And I was just bummed, but not in like a depressed way, just like frustrated at my situation. And so I went up home and I was telling my dad, you know, I've been thinking about LA. I'd done a few weeks there not so long ago and I really liked the vibe. And he was like, if you're feeling it, just go and give it a go. So that was on the Sunday. I got on the flight on the Tuesday, went out to LA for 2 months, had like the best time and felt amazing. I liked myself there. Like, I was by the water, I was in the sunshine, things were just happening. On my very first morning, I walked along this beach. I bumped into this woman who knew me from A Place in the Sun, who set me up a meeting with the creative director of Fox Sports on morning one, jet lagged to hell, looking like crap. And I was like, really? If you're looking for a sign that you're in the right place, that's probably it. So I did loads of meetings and I wasn't having to bang on doors, and I was walking into the top guys at the production companies, and things just seemed to flow and happen really quickly and nicely, and I just really liked it. So anyway, that was great. Came back, started the visa process, and then I stalled because I'm like, this is a huge change. So I sold my flat and I rented a flat for 3 months, and I move out of it in 2 weeks. And I'm basically going to become a nomad for a while and be a resident of the world. I'm going to be working with a US company. I've got a show commissioned and a couple in development. I've got some stuff going on here, which is really exciting. So I'm like, wait a minute, why do I need to be in one or the other? I can just catch flights. So the plan is to go between the US and London, and then in my downtime, just go on an adventure. I'm going to start a little YouTube series, manifest myself a nice travel show. I'm actually pitching a travel show around it as well.
I feel like
obviously.
if anyone can get a travel show, you'll probably be quite well placed.
You'd hope so, but we'll see. So yeah, it's
Fun.
It's really exciting. Like I've got a storage unit this week. My mission is to like create an amazing wardrobe space in my storage unit so I can come back and swap suitcases, because Mongolia's cold, LA's hot. Like I'm going to have to be doing lots of changes.
This is very ADHD.
Yeah.
On the Sunday, Tuesday you're there. You've got your walk-in wardrobe in central London.
Yeah.
This just all works.
Yeah.
But actually,
it's kind of mad.
Doesn't look like it works, but of course it's going to work. Do you see what I mean? But you're making it work by all these different parts together.
But I just feel like I'm opening myself up to the world.
Yeah,
and like, why do I need to... I spent a lot of time sitting, waiting and hoping and waiting to feel better, waiting for things to happen. I'm like, why am I sitting and waiting?
Yeah.
Just like, I'm always good when I'm moving. So just keep it moving, go see new places. And yeah, hopefully, like I've felt like for a while that I wouldn't meet my person in London. Like I don't really feel like I'm supposed to be here full time. So I feel like hopefully if I'm doing cool adventure stuff somewhere, I'll meet someone similar.
Okay, so we have a set of recurring questions we ask every guest. You can choose to not answer them. You can answer them quick fire. You can elaborate as much as you want. What's one societal default or unwritten rule you'd erase or rewrite if you could?
I think the societal default would be our approach to homelessness. That's like, that's something that I think we get really wrong in this country. So I think there's lots of change that could be made around that. And I think a lot of it is based on the lack of support for mental health. And I mean, we actually met at the soup kitchen in London. And I'd volunteered there for years, and I kept going back because I have a brother that has serious mental health issues. He was diagnosed as schizophrenic. And when I was working at the soup kitchen in London, I would go in there and I would see that a lot of those people had mental health issues, and they were only really there because of the lack of support that they had and the lack of support that we as a country give them. So that's something that I would change if I could.
It's really powerful. And do you think it might be something you get into in LA? In terms of like your like community, like volunteering, that type of work?
I've always tried to do something that feeds your soul alongside whatever I'm doing. And I think those sorts, I mean, the homelessness out there is obviously next level, but they also have like a much worse drug problem as well. But definitely, I mean, I worked with some of the people who I met through the soup kitchen in London to open a place called Home Kitchen, which is in Primrose Hill. And the whole idea of Home Kitchen is that we staff people who are homeless or at risk of becoming homeless, and help them get out of poverty and back into work. So they'll come and work at the Home Kitchen for 3 months and then go back into work. So what I would love to happen is that we bring that to LA, and start opening more of those, because actually this is what could actually really make a difference if we had loads of them, helping get people back into work and off the street and back into work.
I feel like you might do that.
Well, we'll see.
Amazing. Okay, so we offer, I guess, a chance to share something that perhaps they haven't shared before. You do not have to answer this if you don't feel comfortable. But what's something you've never or rarely said publicly, but perhaps feel ready to now? Yeah,
that's a really tough one, I was thinking about that on the way here. And I couldn't think of anything serious. I was just thinking of silly things. Only because someone commented on my picture the other day saying, when did Dani transition? So I was really tempted to be like, I was a man. But yeah, that's just the
That's awful.
I know, people are such dicks, aren't they? No, I don't know what I've not shared before that I wouldn't share, that I would share now. To be honest with you, like what we've spoken about today is probably that. I never used to share my mental health. When I was younger, I was scared to tell anyone that anything had ever been wrong with me. And now actually I'm like, no, I think it's a really powerful time to be sharing these kind of stories.
And thank you for sharing, especially your lowest points that you shared like earlier on in the episode. I appreciate you doing that. Okay, 2 final quick questions, and they might seem random, but they tend to open up like really interesting thoughts. If we were to record this again in 2035, what do you hope we're talking about? What do you worry we might be talking about still?
Oh, I would hope that, I don't know. it's really tough because I think the world is a really scary place right now. And like, I'm trying not to look at certain things too much online. I mean, like it's pretty terrifying between the wars and AI and everything. Like, I'm actually scared at what the world will look like in 10 years' time, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I really hope that it is positive and that there's lots of great things that happen, but I don't.
You think the realities might look very different?
I think we should all be moving to the hills.
Kenmore.
Yeah.
Although Kenmore won't have the same.
Scotland's going to get really popular really fast in New Zealand. I hope we're sitting here talking about how the UK turned it around with things like homelessness. You know, like Finland have done such a good job with their system of erasing the homeless problem, literally, because they house them all and give them the right mental health support, etc. So I would love if we were sitting here talking about how, you know, we copied them and did a really good job at turning it around. I would love that so much. I would love for us to be sitting here talking about how there's so much more support in rural areas for mental health, people struggling with their mental health. You know, like I was saying about my brother, we're up in the middle of the hills in Scotland. There's no support, no matter how severe your issues are. So I would love if we were sitting here talking about how that had all turned around. But yeah, I'm also just scared at the world at the moment.
Totally. And I think so many people are, right?
Yeah.
And then our final question, you mentioned AI then alongside the word scary. Like, are you using AI, and do you have any hopes for how you might use AI in the future and what it means for those around you?
Well, I'll tell you what it's bloody great for. I'm not very good at putting my thoughts down in order. I'm quite sporadic. And so I will write a whole show idea, but it'll be like all jumbled up and back to front. I put it into ChatGPT and it formats the whole thing for me, and I'm like, so good. So I do use it a little bit. I try to I know people who ask it everything, and I'm like, no, that's not cool. That's a bit too much. Like, get a life, use your brain. But for like formatting things and like things that you might find challenging to research something quickly, I do think it's insanely clever and handy. But I keep seeing all the things pop up which scare me on the thing where it's like, oh, this is starting to have a mind of its own, and someone made a baby in a robot the other day. I'm like, what the is going on? It's mad. I mean,
you're going to the heart of it.
Yeah.
You know? West Coast,
Wild.
US, there's going to be invention after invention, I imagine, in the time that you're spending over there.
Do you know, though, I think this has been a part of my stalling for 3 months because I was ready to go, but I also was like, with everything that's happened, obviously, Donald Trump is awful. Like, anyone who says otherwise is also awful. And I just think that made me hold off on going for a while because the decisions that are being, just everything. But you've got to live.
Yeah.
And if something bad's going to happen, it's going to happen. I know that.
And if ChatGPT is going to help you organise your thoughts and the ideas into an action plan,
yeah,
then great. Make the most of it. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for being on. It took us in many different directions, which I thought it may do, but thank you so much. And I am looking forward to seeing what you go on to do next. But just a huge kind of, thank you for being as open as you have been, like through the whole time I've known you, but also I'm sure the many people that like you have helped by being open and honest as somebody who people look up to, I think, in a most part, in terms of how you've shown up on kind of TV and honesty online, like need more of that. And I think just, massive hats off.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Dani reminded us today that recovery is very rarely linear and that having a plan, movement, and honest support around you can carry you through the worst chapters in your life. She talked about panic and the way that she felt in her body and her mind rebuilding after such an awful accident. From the suspected ADHD symptoms that she mentions to choosing egg freezing at this stage of her life, this was all about agency and self-respect. If you're in a place of low mood or perhaps struggling on what step to take next in your life, I hope today and this episode acted as that encouragement and that drive to know that today's thought doesn't have to be the thought tomorrow and ongoing. Thank you so much, Dani, for everything that you shared on this episode today. It was incredible to just hear someone talk from the heart, someone from the outside that looks as if they have everything together and they have everything set in their life, but actually nothing is as simple as it seems. Dani hasn't had it easy, but I really connected to the moments that she shared, especially after her accident. How this impacted the career chances, both immediately and long term, it just didn't sit well with me at all, really. The idea that we want people at their best, but perhaps we easily let them down and let them go of them when they're at their worst, so to speak. If you're a leader of a business or a manager in a workplace, what's your plan when someone has an accident or a crisis like this? How would you rally around them? What would support look like? However, it feels that Danni has kept her own mind and body in check, definitely through those hard moments. She talked about the tools she uses daily. Again, in this episode, we talk about water and the powerful impacts of being in water, how it helps her find calm and peace. I thought it was incredibly powerful, the openness that Danni showed in talking about her panic attacks. Panic attacks are often hidden in our society. They're very difficult to understand and very difficult to vocalize. But many people experience them and struggle in daily life with panic attacks. I've met a number of people in the years who have experienced panic attacks, and they do hinder them in their working life and their personal lives. I have learned how to manage my own panic attacks. I used to experience them frequently. I would first feel it in my chest and then in my neck, start to feel quite tight. But then I'll start to get this like overwhelming kind of anxious feeling. It was almost like building up and building up, like I was about to suffocate. I have been able to observe when that is happening and therefore what I should do immediately, which for me is being outdoors and also connecting to the senses. So having something cold by me, so really nice cold drink, fresh air, cold air, helps me just kind of regain that focus. It's almost like a calming, grounding technique, which I've heard many people share too. So understanding your own kind of triggers when it comes to anxiety and panic attacks, but also understanding your own toolkit to manage the prevention and also mitigating some of the severity of panic attack. And there is support available. And for those that are looking for support when it comes to panic attacks, we've added some more details and references of support in the description of this podcast. If you're enjoying listening to our episodes, please consider following Question the Default. Drop a quick rating. 2 taps really can help us on our journey. And subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Perhaps you could consider sharing this episode with someone who you feel will be seen by you sharing it. We'll be back next week, same day, with a new episode. See you then. Thank you.